It was on an episode of Sea of Tranquility's Monsters Den, specifically the top, or what was their top 5 favorite Steven Spielberg movies. And of course, you're gonna have your Jurassic World, your Indiana Jones, your E.T., but that's going to be one that kind of sticks out once in a while. I saw Minority Report when I've heard of the title when I was roughly 12 at the time. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Oh, there's a video game. The video game sucks. Not interested. Never even thought about it for decades. Literal decades until I think I heard someone mention, Minority Report is indeed based off the Phillip K Dick novel. Superstar Tom Cruise gives his most potent action performance, David Adamson, Newsweek, and director Steven Spielberg's Minority Report. For 60 years, Washington, D.C. has been murder-free thanks to astounding technology which identifies killers before they commit their crimes. When the chief of the pre-crime unit crew is himself accused of a murder, he has just 36 hours to discover who set him up, or he'll fall victim to the perfect system he helped create. It's a mind-blowing action thriller that's such an achievement. It reminds us why we go to the movies in the first place, says Roger Ebert. And Richard Carlos of Time says, Spielberg's sharpest, brawniest, most bustling entertainment since Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, how do I feel about this one? Well, Phillip K Dick has written many books, and of course this is one of them. And it's like nowadays his daughter is involved with like the scripts and production and everything else, just to make sure it honors her father's spirit. So this is a movie that is half you can see on the big screen, and half that you can understand. It's like, okay, there is some of the charm that Spielberg has, because what I've noticed with Spielberg is that he's got two types of movies. There's the imaginative family stuff, and then there's the more serious stuff with like Saving Private Ryan and things like that, and The Post, if you will. So this movie falls in between, because it's got your standard. In the future, there's a giant corporation that's they can like give you the type of dreams that you want. It's the your Omni Consumer Products from RoboCop. There's this place called Pre-Crime. And, it's like they rely on these three, I guess they're called precogs, which the closest I guess that would be the fates from the Greek mythology, that they can predict that there are some people who are going to get billed, and they managed to capture the assailant of who is going to, when they do the billing. So what this movie wants to achieve is, can you escape what is already predestined by fate, or can you manage to turn the tides of it, if you will? And is there a system, just like with any system out there, is it perfect, or is it susceptible to flaws, just like anything else? Of course, this has been seen plenty of times. But what works here is that it's not just like a thrill-a-minute cyberpunk ride. I mean, yes, you're going to have some scenes where there are some cars that are kind of cascading down a waterfall, and he just hops from one to another, managing to kicking some of the officers with what they call the sick stick, to subdue them. And it's like there's some tense action scenes, and maybe a little bit of the CGI. It looks kind of wonky, but whatever. It's just a thrill a minute, and jumping down. It's like, yeah, this is the stuff for the big screen. But then there's also some tender moments with his ex and his child, because he's trying to discover who abducted his child from the pool. They're always talking about like, hey, it's like, hey, let's see if Daddy can hold his breath for longer than a whale at 20 minutes, or the longest that a human being can. And that's why he joined this unit, to discover who abducted his child. It's like, of course, whenever it's the year 2048 or 56, we get to see the technology that's happening. In this case, we get a projector that shows everything up that's still somehow done on like cassette tapes. Okay. Home movies, so we actually get to see some of the more personal moments that's going on with John Anderton, not Anderson, the former singer of Yes. Um, so we get to see is like this is actually a more intimate moment where it's where it's personal. It deals with the family, and it's just like okay, we're gonna find this schmuck who did this. And oh, it's the mystery. That's what makes this great. There's also, of course, is this the hard sci-fi or normal sci-fi? I think this is hard sci-fi because it's cyberpunk and it works so gosh darn well. And I'm like, oh, I'm loving this. I'm just thinking that the Minority Report of these three fates that supposedly can predict everything. Well, what if there is a very small section in which they couldn't, and they create this minority report of something that is going against which they believe Arthur Darwell and Arthur C. Clarke and Agatha Christie, or don't know who the third mystery sci-fi author is. Yeah, and for me, there was the tense scene of roughly an hour and 30 minutes in, where they bring out these little like spider trackers where they can detect who a person is by looking into performing a retina scan. And there's like some tense moments where John's hiding underneath the water, and without wanting to get detected. These things have such minute hearing; they can even hear like little air bubbles that ascend to the surface. And it's a tense scene. We also get a nice scene of like a top-down view of all the this entire building where everyone is at, and it's tense. We get to see all the livelihoods going on, them going around causing a ruckus. Ooh, that was such a nice scene to look at. There's also a reference like with the billiard balls, pool balls, whatever in the beginning. That's a reference to, I forgot what. It's on the IMDb, but it does add more credence that this is a smart sci-fi movie. It's not dumb. It's not there for the action because it has to deal with existentialism. It raises the questions of like free will and everything, and what happens, of course, ones that are atop everything. Like, what would happen if we got Max von Sydow, who is the colossal schmuck, not an ultra edition schmuck, but a colossal schmuck. So, and it's like right at the ending, the pieces fit together, and this movie does feel like it's 2 hours and 25 minutes, and I'm just like, this is what I want in a sci-fi movie. I want all the pieces to come together. I want this to have stakes. If you're going to have some personal, intimate moments, include that. Weave it in like a great tapestry. Don't just be something that is barely coherent, that is Frankenstein together, but it's still falling shoe ugly. So, of course, Cruise gives a great performance of especially when he gets dominance over and exposes what Lamar does at the very end, acting confident and not his usual Tom Cruise self. He's actually like a different character this time, which really surprised me, and I was very happy with it. And it's truly a fantastic movie. Maybe nowadays, some of the CGI hasn't aged well, and more advanced concepts have come out since then, but you know what? I'm going to look past that and say this is definitely in amongst probably the top 5, at least top 7 Steven Spielberg sci-fi movies, or just parts of him just being a fantastic director. So I must say, if you really do want to see a fantastic movie that has to deal with deterministic versus freedom of choice and relying too much on a supposedly perfect system, then I recommend that you watch Minority Report.